light and heat. Time to take a stand, boys. Time to make a choice. Time to find our courage. Time to be deployed. Make our only stand here. Make our roads complete. All we waited for now, past and future meet. Get your weapons ready. Kiss loved ones goodbye. Now our time is coming, and it is not the time to cry. Settle wrong from right. In the time of conflict, when the bullets fly, in the space of seconds, a life you cannot buy. Face the facts before you, face the simple truth. We're hopelessly outnumbered, it's tragic but it's true. Make your last formation, take the final road. Now it's time for endings, now it's time to go. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Thursday evening, about 8:06 p.m. here in the big city. It is freezing. It's ridiculous. I think my guest actually has got it worse because he's up in the Boston area where they've been destroyed by every bit of snow imaginable. But hi to the Arvanauts. Hello to all the new folks who are stopping in, and welcome to a very special stream. Before I get started, let me say hi to everybody, as always, for stopping by. I very much appreciate it. The best ways to support the stream, as you guys know, is to hit exclamation point CTT or to hit that share button underneath the video window so you can share it with people far and wide across the wonderful world of the internet. Option 2 to help out is to join my YouTube channel, which is exclamation point ArvTube. That will get you over to my YouTube channel where you will see all past broadcasts, including the past broadcast of this chat that I'm about to have. And then last but certainly not least is exclamation point Steam group, where you can join the Arvanauts Steam group and hang out in between streams, in between chats with me and the rest of the folks from the Arvanauts. And I want to thank everybody quickly for stopping by. Thank you to Zebchi, Vacan, TNS, Techeron, Sanseth, Riverdusk, Poke, Nurath. I'm sorry, I know exactly who that is, actually. Paul Nurath, about which more shortly. Optic Nerve Productions. Hello to Messiah, Mercurius, Koshiro, Infantron, Head of Nixon, Game Misconduct, Dr. Daniel Jackson, Dragon Spear, Cybercat, CRL Sniper, Chuck Finley, Caddy Canary, Capoeirist Mike, Beach, Baku Bayman, 7th Key, and of course my wonderful mods, Gentleman, Shadowed, Lego, Inam, Glog, and of course Apples. Thank you guys all so much for being here, and it is wonderful to get get a chance to chat with the person I have on tonight. And I will do that by getting rid of this and by getting rid of this. Oops, not that one. By getting rid of this. There we go. And by turning on this. Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's good to see everybody today. I hope everyone is doing well. And we have a chance to actually get a chance to speak to someone that I didn't actually think I would at a certain point in my life get a chance to speak to, but it's very neat that I get to do that now. So the gentleman that I'm about to introduce to you is a very, very important person in the computer gaming business. All of you saw a couple of months ago when I played the Ultima Underworld 1. I actually had a chance to play a playthrough of that, and it took a considerably long time because apparently my game playing skills of 1993 are a little bit different than my game playing skills of 2014, so to speak. But I got through it again and remembered it as being just as awesome as I had always thought. And the gentleman that I'm about to speak to is responsible largely for games like that, Ultima Underworld 1, Ultima Underworld 2, System Shock 1, System Shock 2, the Thief games, which as you folks know I love as well, in addition to other games when he was a part of Looking Glass Studios. And this gentleman has now launched a new venture with Other Side Entertainment, and specifically now is working on the Underworld Ascendant Kickstarter, and it is my great pleasure to bring on to the show Paul Neurath to talk to us. Hi, Paul. Thank you again so much for being with us.
Hello.
Oh, hold on. A little bit of technical difficulty. Let's see. Can you hear me okay now?
I can hear you fine.
There we go. All right, there we go. Thank you so much for being on again. I appreciate it. And before we launch into the interview, I am going to want to move in fairly quick order to ask you about what's going on with the new game and not just focus on the old stuff. But from 42-year-old me, let me thank you for the enjoyment I had as a 20-year-old playing this game back in the early 90s when I was a sophomore and junior in college, because it was seriously one of my favorite games of all time. So just quickly to get the nostalgia out of the way, thank you for that, because it was great.
I feel that.
Yeah, hold on one second, Paul. I'm sorry. You're getting garbled here, and I'm not sure why that is. I may have a bad Skype connection, so bear with me for just one moment. Yeah, that's bizarre. Skype being Skype. Let me, if you don't mind, let me just try calling you right back, Paul, so I can get
Sure,
us better here.
Sure.
All right. Skype asks how I would rate the quality of that call. Not very well. Let me try this again. Okay, hello? No, we're getting garbled on your side. We're getting a little bit of the robot effect, I'm afraid.
Oh.
Just looking to see if there's a way that I can fix that. I don't know. Are you able to hear me okay on your end or no?
I hear you fine.
Okay, you hear me fine. I don't know why. Not entirely sure why I'm not hearing you fine.
You want me to try?
Sure. Why don't you try? Yeah. Go ahead and why don't you try calling me back, and we'll see if we can sort this out. Sorry, folks. Well, he could, if need be, I will landline call him if I have to. But okay. Hello. Yeah, we're getting.
Is that any better?
That's a little bit better. Okay.
Okay.
Let's test that again. Can you speak a little bit more?
Sure. Skype is a wonderful piece of software.
Which we all love. Okay, that's a lot better.
Okay, good. Great.
Yeah, let me see if I can, hopefully tentatively, he said, if I can have you turn on the video part for you, and hopefully that'll work. If not, we'll keep it audio, but I'd like that not to be the case.
Is that working?
Yes, it is working lovely. Thank you so much. Okay, wonderful. Technical problems. This is something you never had to deal with back at Looking Glass, right? You guys never had any.
Yeah, everything worked perfectly. The
Yeah,
hardware you
everything was great. All right. So as I said, thank you so much for for giving me so much enjoyment when I was younger, and I was obviously extremely excited when I heard about this new project. And before we launch into talking about that, I want to ask about how we got from the point of Looking Glass Studios closing down to this point, because I know you've been thinking for a long time about wanting to do another Underworld, and in fact, you were a little surprised that it took this long to get to this point. I'm wondering if you could sort of chat a little bit about what confluence events made it possible for you guys to launch the Kickstarter, now when you are.
Yeah, it's a good question. When we finished Underworld 2 in 1993, we just thought we would be doing the next Underworld, the next Underworld from there. And we ended up taking an over 2 decade, break, hiatus.
Right.
But the door opened again over the years a number of times to try to get interest in it, and there was interest, but it just never got to a green light within Electronic Arts. There are other priorities or other reasons, and finally, just before we started Other Side, went back really one last. I pretty much given up.
Let's see. I lost you for a minute there. Are we back?
You hear me?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I don't understand it. It's on my end. You're okay for a while, but I don't. My internet. I'm not dropping frames on my end. I don't know. Something about Skype is not having fun with us. I don't know why that is. Let's see. I don't entirely know how to resolve it either, other than to either drop you off a video. I can call you on a landline if I have to. I hate to do that though. I don't know. Let's see. Well, yeah, I could use TeamSpeak IK, but it's a whole other complicated process, and I can't do video at that point. At that point, I might as well just call him on a landline. I want to put the poor man through more, more hoops. Well, let's try one more time with you chatting, and if not, Paul, then what I'll do is I'll just have to call you on a landline, and we'll have to do it that way. Skype being Skype.
Right.
Okay, if need be. Seems like it's okay now, maybe?
Oh, okay. Is that better?
Seems to be a little bit. Let's try again, and if not, then as I say, I'll call you back in the landline, and we'll just go with that.
All right.
Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. Let me call you on the landline. I can try. Yeah. I don't want to deal with Hangouts and Facebook and all that stuff. Is all stuff that's beyond the scope of what. This is Skype being Skype, sadly. All right. Well, let me then just try calling you on the landline, and I'll see what I can do about getting maybe a separate video feed. But let me just call you on the landline, and we'll do it with that on the audio side. So just
Okay.
old, very, very old school. Yes. Okay. Bear with me. I will call you right back. All right, old schooling it, folks. Landline it is.
Hello.
Hello, there we go. All right, at least we have sound. Apologies for the tech problems. I wish I could take credit for them, but they're not of either of our making. Okay, so let's move back into the discussion. I apologize for that. So I was asking about the confluence of events that got you from point A to point B on actually launching the Kickstarter now.
Yeah, so it really, we were able to get going on the new studio when we got the rights after 2 decades, it was sort of a confluence of events. We were able to get EA to agree to let us take it forward as an indie studio, something that I had been, talking on and off with EA for 2 decades.
Is there anything that particularly changed on their part to make them just say, okay, now? I mean, were you just so persistent they finally gave in, or what is it that made them finally decide, okay, the time had come?
Well, perhaps 20 years of persistence helped.
Yeah.
I think probably as much as anything, it was they hadn't done anything with the Underworld franchise in 20 years, and I think they came to realize that they probably never were going to do anything with it. It's hard to take a game that a group made like we did back at Blue Sky, and just do it on your own. Do it with a new group of people. So I think us being there and eager to take it forward was probably the difference maker.
I see. And it is, I mean, I saw in another interview on this that it is sort of getting the band back together again. I mean, you not only have yourself, of course, but you also have the lead designer on Thief, who's back in the fold. You've got the folks, the voice talent for both Garrett from the original Thief and then Shodan as well from System Shock back. You even have the guy who did the original cover for the Ultima Underworld computer game. So you have really reassembled the group, I guess. And I assume that was conscious on your part to try to get all these incredibly talented people together again.
Yeah, I mean, part of that. We have a mix of people, some people who didn't work on the original
Right.
Underworlds, but we definitely have Tim Stelmach, who was the lead designer on Ultima Underworld 2, as well as on Thief. And so I've worked with Tim for many, many years. So we've got a mix of folks who worked on the original franchise and then other folks who worked on, more recent games like BioShock Infinite or Last of Us. And it's kind of fun to mix generations and experiences of the team.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I guess what I would ask then, sort of moving aside from the nostalgia thing, is one of the things that I've noticed when I was looking at the prototype video, and in a moment I'll show some pictures that your PR folks were kind enough to send along to me. But one of the things, of course, is that there are a lot of developers now who are trafficking in sort of the nostalgia of old as part of the sell. I guess most notably, maybe the way not to do it is to look at Peter Molyneux with Look at What I Did Before. But there's certainly others who have gone back. I had the folks from Shadowgate on my channel a couple of months ago, and of course they recently did a whole reboot of that franchise as well. But my sense is that to get something successful in Kickstarter, it can't just be about this is what we did before. And so I'm curious what your sort of design development principles are now with this new game. What is it other than obvious technological advancements in terms of graphics and so on? What else is the sort of vision to make this the next step and not just, back to Underworld 1? What is it that you really want to look at that sort of breaks from that mold to a degree?
Right. Well, I think the Underworlds were a little bit different than most of those other games you mentioned, in that I think a lot of people and game designers, younger game designers coming up today and being very successful, have told us, Underworld was a game that really influenced them.
For sure.
And that it still feels very modern. I mean, some of the game design that we were doing, the emergent gameplay, the sandbox gameplay, the industry hasn't moved that much further in the 20 years. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's a somewhat unique set of games, and that they were very forward-looking at the time. And then they went into stasis. They went into, just kind of locked away, and so it didn't follow the path of a lot of these franchises that, had a bunch of titles tried, and maybe they faded away and were bounced around a little bit, and then now they're being brought back again. I mean, it's just the door shut 20 years ago, and then it's suddenly been opened again. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I think the Underworlds will really hold up better than most games from the early 90s. Mm-hmm. So the starting point is already, something that was looking pretty far ahead. But yes, to answer your question, any game that I've ever worked on, it's always about innovation. It's always about trying things, taking some creative risks. Mm-hmm. I was doing that in the 80s and all through. So we can take a game like the Underworld, and there are things about it that still hold true today, sort of the the essential, dungeon crawl experience of going into this deep, dark exploration in a first-person, very immersive perspective. That still holds up today. But we can take it forward. So we're doing things like the improvisation engine, which is really pushing forward the whole category of sandbox games, certainly for first person, so that we can start bringing in new kinds of gameplay that haven't been tried before.
Let me jump in, if you don't mind, and ask you just quickly to elaborate on that, on the improvisation end. And I saw a video that just went live on the Kickstarter, I think yesterday, and I was also sent to me. And I'm curious if you could sort of elaborate a little bit on what makes that special, because it does look pretty cool. And I'm wondering if you can elaborate a little bit on how it might work actually in game, and sort of again a little bit about the aspects of it that matter for a game like this.
Sure. I mean, I think there's been a tendency, at least among AAA games in the last, set of years, to be more heavily scripted, more almost, relying on the cinematography. So if you go through a level or a space, it's the designers and the artists craft, a beautiful experience, but it's often a pretty on the rails experience. And if you try to get off those rails, it's like being in the back lot of a studio. You go around there's not much there to see. And so we're taking that in the opposite direction of creating a very dynamic world where the player has a lot of agency in how the experience comes. And the player is really encouraged to come up with creative solutions. One of our hallmarks of doing that well is when the players come up with a solution that none of us designers even imagined could work. So they just come up with something totally wacky, and it works. Maybe better, maybe not, but it works. So it's at some level it's a different approach, it's a different mindset that's not used very much in today's gaming. But the improvisation engine is really it's a set of technologies, and some of this comes from what we learned on earlier games. In the Thief games, which were focused all around stealth gameplay, we developed some technologies to really bring forth that stealth gameplay in a very focused way. So the AIs had sort of knew about stealth. They could hear, they could see. There were lighting radiuses. It was very specialized. That was just for stealth gameplay. So I think the high level on that is we're generalizing that. So we're not just making this for stealth or just for combat or just for magic or just for, crafting and manipulation. We're sort of broadening the definition to say you don't have to just do a stealth path or just be a fighter or magic user. Any of those can be blended together. You could start in an area and use a little bit of stealth and then switch over to, hand-to-hand fighting and then, whip out some magic. We don't really constrain you. We're really trying to keep it wide open. And so the player has a big palette of tools and choices at their disposal.
So you're not concerned about them breaking, in quotes, the game. I mean, you're not concerned about them circuiting some of your beautifully designed areas because they figured something out. That doesn't bother you guys.
Not really, because we're not handcrafting an area to be played in a very particular way. We avoid making, if you had a chamber, some old temple, and from dwarven temple, you might in a game that was on the rails create a path along one side where you created some gorgeous tapestries and stonework, and then a special encounter with a unique monster, and it would all be laid out very much to be played in that way. And if the player happened to cast a fly spell and fly over it, you'd miss it all, and wouldn't that be terrible? We just don't set it up that way. We don't look at these as a one shot. There's one path through this particular area. We want you to go in that path. And I think the other thing is it's about making the player have agency and feeling clever. And if we allow them to do that, it's not about us saying we're going to set up a challenge that the designers come with, and we want to challenge you with this particular puzzle. We want you to run over there and pull a chain and then, toss a spell over and then leap across a rope. And we've gone through all this effort, so you will do that sequence. we don't think that way. You know, we set up a variety of things the player can interact with in a given encounter or space, and then let them go at it. And if they feel clever and come up with a solution that maybe bypasses something else we set up, that's not a problem.
Now, can they be clever enough that they could theoretically break their ability to continue in the game? I mean, I'm wondering if it's, you know, there were some of the classic old ones where you could break the game beyond repair, where you could just throw away the key into the lava that you needed to move on, and that was the end of the game, essentially. I'm curious if there's always a way around even a perhaps mistake. For example, the what you show in the video, the most recent video, is a wizard running across a bridge and then shooting a fireball at the bridge as the spiders run after him, and then the bridge falls into the chasm. And I had this image of what happens if they do that, but oh my goodness, you need the bridge to recross. So I'm just curious if there's always contingencies, if there are always contingencies players can use to get around these things.
Hopefully, yes. We've solved for that, you know, more or less on prior games that were very open-ended.
Right.
We're really, the difference here is the tools you have to solve are more flexible, more. They're getting closer to the point where if you were actually that character in that actual world, and you could think of, well, how would I solve this? It's more likely that you will be able to do that in the game. Mm-hmm. So it's less of a game and more of a, I'm in that world, and what would my character do? What would I do? How would I solve this? And that's a level of immersion that goes far beyond graphics.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, I think, on a lot of levels. And let me ask too about that. Because one of the things that you sometimes see, and I've noticed this from you have a fairly vocal, I think it's fair to say, group of Kickstarter backers and people on your forums, many of whom have very definitive opinions about how old school should be. So, for example, there's been some discussion about the addition of co-op, which at the moment is a stretch goal, and we'll talk more about the Kickstarter specifically in a little bit. But at the moment, co-op is a possible stretch goal. Now, I happen to love co-op games, and I don't have a whole lot of patience for the old school gamer, of which I consider myself one, telling people, no, you're not allowed to have fun playing a game the way you want to play it because that's not hardcore enough or real world enough or something like that. And I'm curious how you sort of balance those possibilities. Now, in the case of co-op, I know it's a stretch goal, so if you don't get there, you don't have to use the resources on them. But how do you balance the discussions from people who say you must absolutely not have a quick save, it's not hardcore enough, or you must absolutely have a quick save because I don't have time to play it and, play for an hour before I can find a save point. You've got to do that. I'm wondering how you balance those competing interests when you're coming from that old school world, if you know what I mean. Yes, you had some differences, as you pointed out, many of them, but still you come from an era where people sort of, walked uphill to school in the snow both ways, if you know what I mean. And I'm curious about how then you balance that against the folks who don't want that kind of experience and against those who do.
And we do have a lot of snow in New England right now, so.
Yes, I mentioned before that both I'm down here in New York, but you guys got it worse.
Yes. It's a great question. And so co-op is a good example of that, single player and co-op. The Underworlds, for 1992, 1993, that was really before the co-op multiplayer was even a form of play in these games. But it was solidly single player. It was entirely single player, and it was really crafted around a single player experience. And there's no question that if you take a game that the core is single player, and then you build in it a co-op mode, that's challenging to do well. It's challenging to sort of fit those elegantly together.
Right.
It's a challenge we're looking forward to, and we think we have some innovative, clever solutions. I mean, some of us may be old school gamers, but we also play modern games, and we see some of the cool stuff people are doing in co-op or, mobile play or MMOs. And one of the things that I've always done is I like to borrow. I look at a game and I say, the way they do this system is really cool, but if we change the context and put it in this different game, it might express even better.
Can you give me an example of a modern game that could have been, that is some sort of an influence? I mean, you don't have to give me specifics about what the influence is, but just, are you able to tell me a game that you've played that you've thought there's some really good stuff in here that people should?
Yeah, well, I mean, BioShock Infinite, the BioShock games,
Yep.
I've really enjoyed those. Those are, I don't have time to play through a lot of games.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I play through a game like BioShock Infinite, it's fairly unusual that I have the time to play the whole way through one of those games. And so, I really enjoy that, even though that game is very different in it. It is much more on the rails. It's much more of a cinematic journey. But there are aspects of that you can take into an open world game such as this. You can still, even if it's an open world game in sandbox, you can create very dramatic moments.
Mm-hmm.
And those moments where you really feel like a hero. Blowing up the bridge, maybe not the most amazing thing, but I mean, it's a small heroic act, I suppose, of having all these giant spiders clambering at you, and you come up with a clever solution. And of course, it's not just a little bridge; it's a big, a long wooden bridge, and it's suspended across, a huge lava pool. So there's ways to, in any game you can look at and you can tease out, they're doing that really, really well. How might we do something analogous to that in the game that we're building? So I think co-op is a great example of something that it is challenging to make that gameplay work in what is at core a single-player experience. We have a different approach, and we haven't really talked about it because it is a pretty far-off stretch goal. And we figure let's worry about that if we get there. But we've certainly spent a bunch of time, doing design and thinking through how the gameplay would work. And we think we have something pretty darn cool, which, if someone's really not into co-op play, they may not be interested. That's fine. We don't foist that mode on anybody. It won't. Mm-hmm. It'll be entirely optional if you want to try it out. So someone might, if we end up doing co-op play, there'll be some players who love that and spend a lot of time doing it, and others who may never touch it, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm. So it's always a matter of sort of adding choice and options both inside and outside the game, as opposed to limiting and restricting. Fair to say?
Yeah, and it's challenging to make the trade-offs. I mean, you do spend effort every time you implement a new system or a new gameplay mode. So you don't want to go willy-nilly and just add a whole bunch of stuff in. I like to think of game design as being kind of like sculpture. It's about paring down so you get the essence of what really works.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The co-op mode, and I don't want to sort of get into it because we're so far from that stretch goal at the moment. But it's really built on the single-player gameplay and the improvisation engine. Mm-hmm. We only seriously considered it when we got our heads around how do you do a co-op mode that really leverages everything we're already doing in the single-player mode. And we came up with, I think, a clever way to do that. That's a little different than what other folks are doing out there. But it's all an experiment. One of the things that we did at Looking Glass is we took creative risks. We were not shy to do so, and some of those worked out quite well, commercially and creatively. Thief is an example.
Yep.
Others worked out wonderfully creatively, not so much commercially, like System Shock.
Yeah.
But we were all about innovating, and it's not that much different here. We at Other Side, we want to continue the innovation.
Yeah, the game, I mean, and that game, of course, now is referred to, but everyone refers to as one of the most enormously influential games in addition to Ultima Underworld. But System Shock now shows up on all these lists, and you wonder where were these people out in the stores buying it when they had they had the chance. But I mean, it certainly it continued the reputation of Looking Glass as a studio that could do that stuff.
Well, that's what we love doing, and I think we were pretty good at it. We definitely went down some dead ends at times. We did a game called Terra Nova, which we put a lot of passion in, and it just didn't quite click as a design. I mean, I think it was a very good game, but it wasn't entirely there. When you're taking a lot of creative new paths, you can get some arrows in the back by being a pioneer. But if you don't try, you'll never get there. And so, our philosophy, has been and still is, let's take the risk. Let's try. you try to be smart about it. And I think that's one of the things we came away from the original System Shock. Original System Shock was probably the most crazy out there innovative game we ever did. Very proud of the game, but we sort of pushed at too many places all at once, and it made it a hard game for people to get their heads around. When it came out in 1994, it was just so far ahead of itself, and the interface was pretty darn intimidating to more casual players.
Right.
Eric. So, we learn. You try things, you learn. I think by the time we got to Thief, we learned a lot about making a game. It was still very innovative at its core, but it was more accessible. The experience was more streamlined. We really focused it on, the gameplay that counted.
Yeah, and Thief, of course, remains another one of my favorites. Just an incredibly atmospheric, just an extraordinary game. I mean, Underworld is probably my favorite PC game, and arguably the one that made me into a PC gamer at all. But boy, Thief was up there for me as well. Just amazing stuff. Let me ask then. Let's turn a little bit to the Kickstarter and some of the stretch goals here. And for those of you, by the way, who've just joined us, it's my pleasure to be interviewing Paul Neurath, who is the formerly of Looking Glass Studios and now the head of Other Side Entertainment, which is running the Underworld Ascendant Kickstarter, which is currently, as you folks see in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, at $483,680, trying to get to a $600,000 goal. And Paul has generously given us an hour of his time, which gives me about 25 minutes to 30 minutes left. And so I'm going to ask him questions for another 5 or 10 minutes. And then I will, as usual, open up to chat to take a couple of questions as well. When I do so, and please don't do it until I ask for them. When I do so, if you can just type in question in all capital letters and then fire them out, and I will ask as many of them as I can. So let me ask Paul then about the Kickstarter itself, because this is a new animal. And I'm sorry if I don't know this. Have you run a Kickstarter before, or is this or not?
No, we've between us we've I think developed like 70 games, but it's our first Kickstarter.
Okay.
So we're novices when it comes to Kickstarter, but we're learning fast.
Okay. So and that's what I was going to ask, because the sort of news that just hit today is, number one, that Tracy Hickman of Dragonlance fame has been tapped to write a novel, I believe, set in the Underworld universe, if
That's
I've got
correct.
that right.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yep.
so Tracy Hickman, and I hope everybody here doesn't need me to tell them that Tracy Hickman, who is a nice guy and who I know a little bit in my author capacity, but he's the writer of the Dragonlance novels and many other things. Weiss and Hickman, of course, most famously. He's also responsible for the Killer Breakfast at Gen Con, which Optic you'll see when you go there. So that was the first news that dropped. But the other news that dropped, which arguably is going to be possibly more important for the Kickstarter, is that you've now folded the Mac and Linux ports into the initial base goal. So once you get to the base goal, you'll now be providing Mac and Linux. You might do it a little bit delayed from the initial mode, but it is going to come out. And so I wanted to ask you about that, first of all, about changing things in the middle. Thank you for the follow, Firam. About changing things in the middle, and about what sort of went into the thought process about making that available to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it was we debated it before we started the Kickstarter. Should we have the Mac and Linux version in the base goal or not? Should we raise the base goal a little bit and fit that in? It's not it's a smaller piece of the stretch goal, the doing the Mac and Linux version, but it's there's real work there, and it's not just if you're using Unity, we haven't locked into using Unity, but we're using it right now, and Unity is nice for cross-platform, but you still have to twiddle it and test it and QA it, and you want it to work well on those different OSs, and so there's a little more work involved there than just hitting the build button.
Right.
But, we sort of went back and forth, and partly based on our assumption of what percentage of people would actually use those versions, which seemed like it would be pretty small for this kind of a game, we ended up putting in that stretch goal. But while we were running the Kickstarter over the last 2 weeks, we've been listening carefully, and we ran a poll and got some very good numbers on our poll.
They're very vocal, the Linux people. I have one, Glog, one of my moderators, is a Linux evangelist, so they are very vocal.
Yeah. It's not so much the vocal, though. It's really getting a sense of how many people would really want to play this on these platforms. Mm-hmm. And then, we sort of thought about how could we juggle this around, and partly by pushing out, not trying to do it simultaneous, because that was, originally our plan was to do these essentially simultaneous. But by, padding it out by a month or several, that really helps to minimize sort of the impact, the budget impact of shifting those things around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the software development is a complicated thing. We're in the base goal, we'll have, 300, 400 different, elements that we're all kind of juggling and fitting in the budget. So these are two more. So it's one more thing to juggle in.
More balls
a lot
in the air.
to juggle in.
Yeah. If there is ever a real disagreement, I'm sure that you guys all want to work together as one big happy family, but if there is ever a disagreement where you have a pretty strong, split in the team that thinks, no, this is not something we should provide, yes, this is something, is that on you as the final call to say this is what we're doing and that's it? I'm curious how those, I'm sure very rare situations resolve themselves when someone has to make a call.
Yeah, that's my call. And, the approach I've always had going back to, Looking Glass and Blue Sky was, everybody can speak up. Everybody's opinion counts. It's about getting to the right answer. And
Mm-hmm.
teams tend to be much better about that than any individual.
Mm-hmm.
I've always found, particularly if you bring different skilled people together, at Looking Glass we had like some super talented artists and some, super talented musicians and programmers and designers and people from very different backgrounds. And that's what made for part of the magic is you kind of put all those people in one room and you say, you guys figure out how to work together and how to leverage each other's skills because you have very disparate skills. And so you get all these opinions, and that's great, and we encourage a lot of debate. But there are times when a decision just has to be made. On the original Thief, it didn't used to be a game about, it started not a game about thieves at all. It started as a reverse play on, the story of Camelot, and it was going to be all about sword fighting. It was the core mechanic was going to be about, first-person sword fighting.
Wow.
And the team really wanted to do that. That was the game they had envisioned. And the problem is that after some months of trying to experiment and create a prototype with sword fighting, it wasn't fun. It didn't work. And so
then it became a game about avoiding sword fighting at all costs.
Yeah, ironically enough, yes, it did.
Yeah.
But, partly I had sort of made the call of saying, we could spend another 6 months going down this, but I don't see that there's really any, that we don't seem to have an answer to this. We don't even know how to solve it. We had, over a period of months, we had tried a number of different things. That didn't work. We just couldn't figure it out, how to make that fun. Real-time, first-person, intensive sword fighting and dueling. Awesome goal, but we couldn't pull that off. And so then, we reevaluated. We tossed it out and then came with stealth and not much sword fighting.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that worked great. And so sometimes you sort of have to make the call because the teams can get so passionate and they're chasing something. And somebody has to sort of keep an eye out for, is this direction still working or do we need to make a course correction?
And hopefully all the experience that you guys have had makes that somewhat less likely, but it's still, is going to happen on occasion. So
and it's not even necessarily a risk. It's just part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
But this team has been through, I don't know, collectively 70 so games they've shipped over the years. So we've done a lot of games, and it's never been an issue of not being able to finish the game. The tough things are how do you make a great game? How do you make a game that everything sort of falls into place? That's the challenge.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about. Let me ask you the one. Let me ask you the one more challenging question as far as and I want to, because I want to give you a chance to sort of respond to this. Given the success of some of the Kickstarters that we've seen from these games, from these studios, I recently had the guys from Harebrained Schemes on. They are friends of the show, have been on with me a couple of times, and as you know, the Shadowrun Hong Kong Kickstarter did dynamite, ending up funding at $1.2 million with a $100,000 initial goal. And there has been some concern that the pace of this Kickstarter that you folks are running is not up to what would be expected, especially given I mean, the pedigree. I mean, if you consider what it is that you guys have done, and how much of a foundation was laid for gaming from there, it's amazing that you don't, in a way, that you don't just have to say, we're formerly Looking Glass, and then essentially drop the mic and walk off stage and watch the money come in. I mean, it ought to be as easy as that. But
that would make our lives a little easier. It's an extraordinary amount of work to run these games.
I imagine, and so that's what I wanted to ask you about. I mean, I think that now you're beginning to see. There's no question you folks will fund. I've done a Kickstarter myself. I've watched a lot of these. There's no question you guys will fund. But I'm curious if you could talk a little bit, just very briefly, about what makes it sort of more challenging in this environment to sort of go through this method, and then sort of secondly, the benefits of going through this method, because clearly there are benefits to going through Kickstarter as well. And I'm curious about, since this is your first Kickstarter, you guys are learning as you go, but it's not your first game by any stretch, sort of how you've seen those two worlds coming together in this project.
It's been fascinating. So in terms of the funding for this project, I mean, knock on wood, I think we're fine to get into our first stretch goal. We may get well into our second stretch goal. I don't know whether we'll get up into co-op play in some of those, the high stretch goals. But I think the broader, context of kickstarting games today compared to, 2012, when like a Wasteland 2 got kickstarted, some of the early big successes, it's different now. Back in the early days, it was brand new and shiny, and there was a lot of interest, and people who might not otherwise, be drawn to an indie game just because it was kickstarted, it was fascinating.
Right.
And so you had just a lot of interest and a lot of buzz, and I think it was, all the numbers we've seen point to, being, it's order twice as hard today to raise what would have been done in 2012 for a similar product. Mm-hmm. So the bar has gotten much higher. There's a lot more headwind. You do see exceptions, and I think Hong Kong probably falls in this category. If you're a studio that has previously kickstarted a game and you already have a big audience, and then you're telling that audience, we're doing a new version of that game or a similar game, well, then you're starting with an audience that have already come aboard and love, presumably you did a good job. They like the game you did first, and so they're on board to, a lot of them, to just jump right on your next project. If you have a new studio, though, you're starting from scratch, and other side is a new studio, even though our members have been doing this for 20, 30 years. It's harder. It's much harder now. So, that's the headwind we're going against. On the other hand, we're picking up some momentum, and I think we're going to come out just fine on this. Mm-hmm. It's just more work. It's harder to get the momentum initially. The first, couple of weeks to get the word out and sort of build your audience base of backers is steeper than it was a couple of years ago.
Having said that, is it a method? I mean, I guess I should get back to you in 2 weeks to see your final answer to this question. But, yeah. But is it something you are glad that you went this route as opposed to trying to go through a traditional publisher and all the sort of things involved there?
Yes. It's, like anything, there's good and bad, pros and cons. But the thing that really attracted me and to this model is that when we were developing games at say, Looking Glass, we didn't, when you work through a publisher particularly in that era, I haven't worked with a game publisher in more recent years, so I couldn't speak, but in that era in the 90s, the publisher sort of put a wall.
Oh, hold on just a moment. We lost Paul. I will get him back.
I'm back again.
Hi, Paul. Sorry, it looks like I lost you. On you go. I just lost you a second ago. So.
Oh, no problem. So when we were making games like System Shock and Thief and the Underworld, the publisher's brand was out there in front, and we were kind of in the back room, and we didn't have much interaction with the fans. And when we made a game, we made it largely in isolation of the people playing the game.
Right.
So we had a guess. I think people would like this, and whatever. And that's really hard. So what's great about this is having the fans along right with us from day one,
Mm-hmm.
and we can get their feeling because we're making this games for the fans, and the ability to with digital distribution to roll out, pre-alphas and prototypes and get it into people's hands, because that's how we kind of figure out where to iterate and what works is by playing it as we're progressing through the development. But to have our fans be able to do the same thing and get that feedback and say, yeah, this is great, this is really working well, it's a huge edge, and it's a lot of fun to be have these fans involved. It's not so lonely.
So I was going to say,
Be
so
in the back room.
you don't mind, despite that, having to be serving 8,943 masters at the moment. That's okay.
We're making I think it's like any creative endeavor. It's some of it we're making the game that we're passionate about, and we can't not. We care so much about making these games, but we're not just making these games so that we can play them ourselves.
Right.
One of the worst things about being a game designer is that your own games, since you've made them, there's just not a lot of interest in playing them.
Yeah, of course.
So it's sort of all spoiled. But where you get the enjoyment is watching other people discover them, and that's a wonderful thing. So I want friends and just people play a game where they tell stories about playing in Underworld and their experiences, and they truly enjoy these experiences, and that's where the reward is. And so, yeah, it's all about sharing that. So you don't really have 8,000 masters or whatever in this. I mean, you do have a collective voice, and certainly some people will say, hey, why don't you do this feature or whatever. It's all a stuff you can draw from. It's sort of this, somebody comes up with a great concept, and you see a particular gameplay that people really get into. That's great. And so it's having that communication so that you can discover those things that really resonate with your fans.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. Well, one more question from me, chat, and then I will ask. Chat for a few questions to give to Paul. He'll have about 10 to 15 minutes more with us. But one last question from me, and that is contingency plans. I'm just looking at some of the things listed on the site. At 750,000 stretch goal, we've got Necropolis of the Ancients, which is a new area. We've got a new Martha Tracy Hickman novel. At 900,000, we have the companion creatures. We have the language localizations. We have the enhanced dynamic music. We get Lizardmen. I know that a lot of people in the forums have been very passionate about demanding that Lizardmen arrive somehow.
I've heard that, yes.
Yeah, Lizardmen apparently are super popular now. Who knew that they were?
Who knew? Yeah.
That they were going to be that big a deal. And then, of course, the co-op at 1.2. So right. Contingencies. If I know you have discussed elsewhere the possibility that funding will continue or gathering funding will continue after the Kickstarter finishes, and I'm wondering. How far would that stretch? I mean, if you get to a number out of the air, 700 or 895,000, right? Would you figure out a way to fund and get the extra 5,000 so that more or less, I mean, it wouldn't exactly be within the Kickstarter purview, but you'd then be bringing us what you get at that $900,000 goal, or what sort of flexibility do you foresee for funding past the end of the Kickstarter?
Well, part of the answer to that is it's a lot easier if we make these stretch goals.
Of course, right. I mean, that's the number one, of course.
And there's just so much more fans coming and attention, and it's a lot harder to fund, off your own website the way a lot of folks do. Mm-hmm. And we've seen the numbers on that, and so over the span of a year or two, you can maybe aggregate a lot of funding, but. Now you're talking about stretching a project way out. We're not interested in that. I don't like working on projects for more than a couple of years. Creatively, it's hard, and so I'd rather get the game done and out in people's hands. And we were actually generally pretty fast at Looking Glass. We did a bunch of games that only took 18, 24 months. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of part of the answer there. I'm not really interested in continuing to fundraise for months and months and months and months. It's hard enough to do.
This is not Star Citizen, in other words.
No. I mean, Chris is great. He's an old friend. He has a different model, and he's trying to create an MMO, a grand MMO, and that's a whole different ball of wax. We have a very scoped game, and I think at Looking Glass we were known for that. We created innovative games, but we generally kept a pretty tight scope on them. So, it's really, we'll see how far we get in the stretch goals at the end of the Kickstarter. And I think, we'll more or less, based on that, we'll scope it out. If we raise somewhat more money, sure, we could consider adding something, but we don't want to slow it down. So, if we had some, you may have seen the question marks beyond the 1.2 million. We actually have a few more stretch goals there because we had no clue going into this, what the fundraising might be like, and we figured, well, what if, what if we're quickly over 1.2 million, halfway through the Kickstarter?
Then what do we do?
What do we do then?
Yeah.
But not that we seriously thought it would happen. You sort of have to plan for a variety of contingencies. So anyway, we're going to scope it tight. And honestly, the core game is would be a great game in its own right. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a very lean game, just the core game. It doesn't have Blizzardman in it, sadly.
Yeah.
But
That's
it's got
the
a
tragedy.
awesome. It's going to be an awesome game. If that's if that's all the funding we get, then we're good and we can make that game.
And you do think that at that 6, because I know there are some Kickstarters where the goal is not really the goal. You do think, and of course the hope is we go way over that, but you do think that you could, with a 600,000, 625,000, that's pretty lean budget, as you know, for computer game design. But you think you can make that happen at that goal? I mean, you're confident that you could do that if that happened.
Yeah, we raised some funding when we started up, so we're not starting from zero funding.
Gotcha. Okay, all right. So then that answers that then. Okay, well, then we have about 10 minutes here, which gives us enough time for me to take some questions from chat. So again, chat, if you could, now is your chance. You can ask questions. Again, questions should be in all capital letters. I will not be able to get to all of them. I'll do the best I can, but do question in all caps and then colon and then your question for Paul. Again, for those of you coming in, this is my interview with Paul Neurath, who is the head of Other Side Entertainment and is running the Underworld Ascendant Kickstarter. And I've been talking with him about some really interesting things about game design over time. So, and about what he has planned for this game as well. So with that said, I have now opened up these questions. So yes, thanks, Jen. So again, capital question, and here we go. All right, Glog asks, how far in developing are you? Is switching the engine already impossible? Epic just launched Unreal Dev Grants. It could be another income for the game and also might be the better engine. I suspect this is a not pro Unity question. But in any case, how far in developing are you, and is switching the engine, are you committed to Unity?
Yeah, no, we're not committed to an engine. We're still pretty early in development in terms of our prototype. We're basically 3 months in of prototype development. We've used we've used Unity, we've used Unreal, we've used the Source engine, we've used a bunch of other engines. We have a lot of engine experience. We built our own engines from scratch. There's never a right or wrong. Like, this engine's always better. This engine's sucks. It doesn't work that way. But Unity is working for us now. We're working under 4.55. Mostly because it's very robust and it's quick to prototype with, so we can make really fast progress on game design.
Mm-hmm.
Our current plan is to move to Unity 5. Once that becomes robust enough that it's not going to slow down our production pipeline. So hopefully pretty soon. If it meets our expectations, because they're stepping up the visuals and some other aspects quite a bit. If it meets our expectations, we should be good. If we're surprised and it doesn't, then we'll move to another engine.
Okay, but you got the agility to switch if need be.
Yeah, I mean it would be a pain. We'd lose some time switching an engine, but it's not that big a deal.
Okay. Let's see. Salek, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, or Salek asks, question, how much of the game could be randomly generated to increase potential replay value? Let me, just before Paul answers, I'm going to guess he's going to say no, because procedurally generated is not what we do. I'm guessing, but you tell me if I'm wrong, Paul.
There's some great procedurally generated games, but that really wasn't what the Underworlds were about.
Right,
And more importantly, we're trying to create this very emergent gameplay world, and the problem is when you layer on top procedurally generated, you kind of lose the ability to do that to some degree. It makes it really hard to do it, and so there's a real trade-off there. The other thing about procedurally generated worlds is that, in my view, they tend to feel kind of generic.
I agree
after a while.
entirely.
You go through them, and you know after your 50th room, 100th room, 500th encounter, it's hard to make them actually feel. They sort of feel all the same. Haven't I seen this room before?
I agree. Do you remember the old game Dungeon Hack from back at that time?
Oh, yeah.
And I always had the exact same feeling as early back as that, of a game that seemed like, you could have millions of hours, but it always just ended up feeling, flat somehow, because it was the same sorts of things being replicated, and so forth. Assets and tiles.
Yeah,
and
so,
things.
it's a different kind of experience, but it's not really a great fit for what we're trying to do.
Okay, I figured as much. Okay, Kashiro asks, question, now that you have Stephen Russell and Terry Brocious on board, that's Garrett and Shodan's voice respectively, how much of the NPC dialogue will be voiced?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're actually going to, so we haven't, not a firm decision, but our strong leans are not to try to do a lot of voice acting, heavy voice acting. It's partly because that's not the nature of this game. This isn't a go talk to 500 people and they'll each give you their little dialogue trees. When we moved to System Shock, we did that. One of the things that we experimented with, which I thought worked out wonderfully well, is we tried to get away from the dialogue trees of the Underworlds. That was one thing that we weren't entirely satisfied with. It felt stilted, and coming up with the audio, logs that as a player you'd sort of stumble upon. It made you feel like you were constructing the story or exploring the narrative. So we've got some innovations we're trying to explore there of how you take that in a fantasy role-playing context.
Okay.
But, we want to breadcrumb the story more, and that tends not to fit well with heavily scripted, voiceover.
Right. It was something that I talked about with Mitch Gittleman and the guys from Harebrained Schemes about the voiceover issue, and they were very adamant that they wanted to, there are some minor voiceovers here and there, but for them, they didn't want to be pinned down because that game is so text-heavy and so driven by reading that, be almost prohibitive cost-wise and otherwise to try to get them to voice everything like a BioWare game might do. So anyway,
right, and that's being an indie studio and the kind of budgets we're working on. I mean, we're not working on a $15 million budget kind
right.
of things. We're sure we'll voice over every single thing, but it's not just the budget. It's you're starting to go down the same path when you feel like everything has to be voiced. It's a similar path of saying we have to create a handcrafted, on the rails kind of thing where everything is gorgeous that you walk through. And once we've made all that, we better make sure the player sees it all.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the audio equivalent of that.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, Dragon Spear asks two questions actually. Will Lord British make a cameo on the game, or at least his sandalwood box? I don't know whether you're allowed to have any Ultima references. Are you in this?
So my understanding, Richard would know better, but I think Richard Garriott actually has, he individually owns the rights to Lord British, is my understanding.
Right, okay.
So I think we could use Lord British.
Okay. All right, well then maybe. Just not reference to that, something that rhymes with Bultima or something that he's dealing with it.
Yeah.
All right, Dragonspear also asks, will there be a morality or fame system implemented and tracked? And that's actually a good question because it ties into the diplomatic system that you've talked about, which was a function of UU1, but I gather it's something that you're going to be able to sort of expand upon here.
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
The question was about, will there be a morality or a fame system implemented and tracked? And I sort of took that to talk about, I give you a chance to talk about the diplomatic aspect of the game where you're dealing with these different factions.
Yeah, good question. So, in a way, yes, but not in the way maybe people think of a morality system. We really go out of our way not to place a judgment on the player's actions. So we don't say, oh, that's good, you're bad, you're evil, we kind of let the player make up their minds on whether they feel their actions are evil or good or amoral or what have it. We allow the player to do, a lot of freedom of choice. And then there are consequences. The world reacts to that. So if you go slaughtering people, you will get a certain reputation among the people you're trying to slaughter, which, the world's going to respond to that.
Yeah, sure.
But it's not like we put a big stamp and say, now you're chaotic evil, and therefore, we're going to dress you in black clothing and, goodness knows what. So the game doesn't sort of make judgments, and we don't make judgments on your gameplay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's a good answer. Let's see. Koshiro asks, question, how flexible will the physics engine be? Can I kill monsters by dropping heavy objects on them?
That's a great question. You kill a monster. I would think absolutely yes. You wouldn't need to do that. We hope to have a very flexible, capable physics system, built in. That's one of the things we did in the original Underworlds when people weren't even doing physics systems. We had the arc of a bow or a rock that you threw. We tracked all that stuff in real time, which wasn't really being done in role-playing games.
Right.
So, yes, we will continue to go down that path.
Okay. All right, one or two more. Call asks, question, when can I get into the beta? Yes. When do we have access? I think that's a question we'd all like to know.
We actually set it up so there's beta access, alpha, and prototype access. So we have it staged.
Right, from one of the pledges on Kickstarter, right?
Very early.
Okay, yeah.
So those won't be, maybe, I don't know, 6 months from now? Not too long, 6-9 months. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, let me just follow up on that quickly. You guys say that this delivery is supposed to be sometime in, I think, mid to late 2016, and you just talked about how you guys are pretty fast there. What's your sense? I mean, we won't hold you to this per se, but are we looking at are you pretty confident about like a September, October 2016, or can you see it slipping farther than that? Or I'm just curious. I know, again, I know this is forecasting a little bit, but from your experience in it, what do you think is a reasonable ballpark ETA?
So we have November of 2016.
November, I'm sorry.
And that's our best guess of when we can do it, and that's based on working on 70-plus games. And we know, since we've done it a lot, yes, software can slip. There is some ability to say, okay, we always create a list of, here's all the features and elements that we could do. Let's take 20% of them and put them on if things go smoothly, we'll tackle some of these.
Mm-hmm.
And if start getting behind, we'll start not doing those. So that there's some give and take that helps in hitting dates. The other thing is, if we fund through, say, the co-op feature, one of the consequences is it will take us a little longer to deliver the final game.
Mm-hmm.
But the final point is that it's not. This isn't a packaged good anymore. These are digitally distributed. So we certainly have the option, and I think a lot of players would prefer. Let's say that we said, okay, we're going to put out the single-player game, and then we're going to spend 3 more months working on co-op, and when we have that, we're going to release co-op,
mm-hmm.
Rather than holding the whole game up until we have co-op. I'm not saying that's what we would do, but you just have those options now
sure.
with digital distribution that you didn't have when you had to put it in a box and put it on a retail shelf.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, last 3, and then we will let Paul go because, I wanted to keep this to an hour, and Paul's been very generous with his time in the middle of a busy Kickstarter already. First question from Glog. Question, will you come again and show progress to us? So I guess the question would be, 6 months down the line, could we maybe have you or one of your team back to chat a little bit about how things have progressed?
Love to do that, absolutely.
Okay, lovely. Second question from Schmerl. Will the game, and I think I know the answer to this, but will the game mostly focus on the dungeon-like environments, or will it have outside open world areas as well? I think you said you wanted to focus on the Stygian Abyss, right, and keep it down there?
Yeah, we made an early decision when we were doing the concept days that we were just going to do entirely in the underworld, in the Stygian Abyss, and focus lavish all the attention on this very exotic underworld. And I think that makes it different than most other games out there. That most of the games have mostly outdoors and a little bit of dungeon. Mm-hmm. We're going dungeon all the way.
Okay, so dungeon all the way. Actually, interestingly, Legend of Grimrock is one of the few sets that went the other direction, that started with mostly dungeon, and then went over into the open world. Although I guess Ultima Underworld 2 did a little bit of that, in the sense you had multiple worlds attached.
It did.
So,
that's right.
Okay. And let's see. Then the last question that we get from gentlemen here is the story mostly to be an expansion on the Underworld series already established, or will this be a self-contained storyline? It's a good question.
That's a good question. How do I phrase it? we're definitely picking up threads from the original games, more so the original Ultima Underworld, and sort of telling a bit of a new twist on that story in a somewhat different time frame. So we wanted to revisit because the plot of the original game, while there was a lot of good bits, it was also something that when we look back on it, we say, boy, we could have told that much better. Mm-hmm. So we want to tell it much better.
Okay, so and I guess I'm an author, so a lot of my focus tends to be on sort of story and narrative. One of the things I liked about a game like Ultima Underworld is that there was an overall overarching story with a lot of side branches, but it was sort of what I call revealed lore, which you see in a lot of the Metroid games as well, where it's not, you don't have the BioWare, which is good in its own way, but a very specific storyline that brings you through A, B, and C, but rather is giving you these sort of bits and pieces that you pick up and kind of reassemble, into a story. And I gather that's what you're looking at here with this as well, right? It's more of a revealed lore story than a go here and do this and go here and do this type of story.
Yes.
Okay. that's
you said it very well.
Okay.
I hardly add to that. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Excellent. This is, I have to say, Paul, I'm just thinking back to playing on my old leading edge 486 computer attached to a MIDI keyboard with that incredible music kind of going through there in the background. Oh, and I'm sorry, one last one. Is the music, I don't suppose you're grabbing your composer too. Are you going to have, is the music going to have a similar feel, even if we don't reach the dynamic, music goal? Is there going to be a similar feel to what you had for Underworld 1? Because I love the music on Underworld 1, I have to say, dynamic and otherwise, but...
Yeah, well, we put out one of the pieces of theme music we released right at the start of the Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. So I think you can play it off of our website, and that's based on one of the themes from the original Ultima Underworld.
Okay.
So we reorchestrated a theme, and it's for anyone who's played, it's pretty recognizable.
And that's what you expect to be able to do for that. That'll be the themes that we're looking at.
Yeah, we'll do some new music too, but we just thought it was fun because it was it brings back memories when you listen to some of that music. So we kind of selected the half dozen pieces of theme music that we like the most, and said, let's sort of reorchestrate this and weave this into the new audio landscape.
Okay, yeah, and I agree with you. It is sort of nice to go back and also look forward at the same time. Well, Paul, this has been great. I really very much appreciate you making yourself available to us for an hour, and thanks also to Jim Redner at your PR folks for getting it done, and to Other Side Entertainment. Chat, can we have some love, please, for Paul Neurath? Paul, thank you so much, and yeah, I would love to be able to get you and or other members of the team, back some months from now when the Kickstarter, no doubt, is funded and you guys are all celebrating. Are you going to take a day or two off after the Kickstarter's successful funding to just kind of take a breath before plunging into development?
Yeah, I think I have a weekend off.
Okay, good. As long as you get a weekend, you could probably use it to shovel snow because I'm sure there'll be more coming down by then. To be able to do it.
Well, thank you very much. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul. I appreciate it, and thanks. And again, best of luck with the Kickstarter.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks. All right. Very good stuff. Very good stuff. Well, thanks, you guys. Good job out of chat, again, as always. And again, thanks so much to Paul Neurath and the Other Side Entertainment guys. I apologize for the technical difficulties earlier on. I wish I had more control over them, but Skype is Skype. So that's all I can say. I am going to say, however, that if you have not already done so, I'm going to make this really large. Whoa! 483,735, 8,943 backers. We can clearly do better. What's up, Frosty? Good to see you. We can clearly do better than that, I think. This is a game, you guys know how much I loved Ultima Underworld 1. I have Ultima Underworld 2 that I'm going to play through again at some point on the channel. But obviously, Ascendant, this is just cool stuff, and it was enormously influential. So head over there, back the project, and please spread the word about it because, this is something that ought to get done. There's just no question about it. Okay, now, let me remove these things for just a moment. Actually, no, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that. I am not going to do that, and I'll tell you why. Because I happen to have a video here that is pointing out... Thank you, Koshiro, for the follow. Thank you, by the way, for all the new follows that came in. I appreciate that very much. I'm actually going to pop up something. This is actually taken from the Kickstarter, but it was sent to me. I'm going to play this just briefly here. It's about a 4-minute video, just so we can get a sense of that improv engine. I didn't want to do it during the interview. Then, as Shadowed Mage said, then we will take a break, and then I will move on to Trails of Sky, day 2 of Trails of Sky. But before I do that, let me show you guys this video, and let me get out of the way.
It was the first game that really took a systemic approach rather than a scripted approach to interactions. What that meant was, instead of the designer determining how every problem or challenge would be overcome, the player could decide how to do that. Players got to show how clever and creative they were rather than designers doing it. That was a revelation.
A lot of modern adventure games have gone in the direction of really trying to script tighter and tighter moments so that everything is very carefully crafted. And that's great, but it's not what we first came to love in our pen and paper RPGs, where we'd sit around the table and we just kind of improvise with our DM. And that's a kind of story that we would like to hear more from our players. We want to have the kind of experience in video games that we always loved having with our friends. All of this posed a challenge for us when we were trying to put our video together and trying to figure out how to show you what these kinds of choices were like. We can't show you all of the possibilities, the way a situation might have gone. So instead, we decided to focus on setting up some situations that might have seemed conventional at first, had obvious solutions to them, and show you some surprising solutions to those situations to suggest the idea that the player can improvise. So in the scene where you see the wizard running away from the spiders, he's got just the one spell left. He can't take on all those spiders. What is he going to do? You know, he runs away over the bridge. I can't take out all these spiders, but I can take out that bridge.
This, of course, leaves us with a whole new problem. There's loot on the other side of this chasm that I still want. How am I going to get that? I'm friendly with the dwarves, so maybe I enlist their help and get the bridge rebuilt. Sorry I blew that up. Or, as a wizard, I learn a mind control spell and take over the minds of these spiders and have them carry me across the roof of the chasm.
With the scene of the thief on the island confronted with a horrible tentacled monster, we figured we didn't really need to show you that you could fight the monster. You know, in a fantasy role-playing game, you probably know that you can fight monsters, right? So we wanted to show what happens when that's the type of character who isn't really focusing on that approach. Maybe they're not the greatest warrior, but they're nimble. You know, they've worked on their jumping and acrobatic skills. They can avoid the monster, go over to this apparatus that's attached nearby, and do the swashbuckling move to escape instead. We hope that you're imagining the way that your character in a role-playing game might have handled them differently instead, that you have your own ideas about the kind of experience that you want to have. And our goal is to allow you to do that, to put together a system where all of you, with all your different answers to the questions, are all right.
You really get the sense that you're in a real place, not that you're in a cartoony or gamey space, but that you're in a space that reflects what you know of the real world, even if you're interacting with dwarves and elves and other fantasy creatures. There are always reasons why the world looks and feels the way it does. There are reasons why characters in that world respond to you and to each other the way they do.
So what this means is that your actions as a player will have consequences on the kinds of encounters you might have, the kinds of conversations you might have. The things that you do in the world will affect what kinds of animals might thrive in the underworld, what kinds of things you'll see later, how the environment around you will develop. The things that you do are things that the characters that you encounter are going to have opinions about, not just that they'll give you quests, and if you go fetch them a hamburger, they'll give you a quest item, but that they watch the way that you approach playing the game. And they have things that they think are good and things that they think are bad.
Very cool. That's cool. All right, people. So yes, that was pretty cool, and it looks really neat. I mean, it's obviously early prototype. I heard some people talking on the forums about talking a little bit about well, the video is like, the video doesn't look good enough, and right now, the model's not up there, and it should be better. And I'm kind of like, it's a prototype, guys. Like, come on now. It's a prototype. Like, by definition, they've just started this, you know what I mean? So they can't really get themselves involved in it. But it's funny sometimes what people expect or don't expect. But anyway, I wish them the best. Obviously, we'd like to think that our channel gives them, we're the kingmakers, right? Like, we get Harebrained Schemes on, Kapow, 1.2 mil, so we'll get these guys on, and the sky's the limit. But anyway, thanks a lot, chat. Good job out of you guys for what you did in the questions, and good job out of the moderators as well. All right, I'm going to take, it's about 9:23. I'm going to take about a 7-minute break, and I will be back here at 9:30. And when I come back, we will start with part 2 of the cast, and that is going to be day 2 of Trails of Sky. So hang out with us. Please chat with us. I hope if you folks have come for Ultima Descended that you will stick around, because we like to think we're fun folks over here. If you like what you saw and heard here, please make sure to follow and spread the word about the show. We're trying to move the channel towards partnership, and I do a number of interviews of this kind, and we'll be doing more in the future. Hopefully next month I'm going to be having the guys from Pillars of Eternity from Obsidian to talk a little bit about that game. I'm very psyched about that game as well. And then maybe even hopefully getting some people on to talk about The Witcher 3 as well. So I'm looking at all of that, and hopefully you will enjoy both those and the sort of typical gameplay. So thank you very much for the follow, Cyber. I appreciate it. And so thank you guys all so much. Hang tight, and I'll be back at you in about 7 minutes. Once again I see your face, the surface lined with care. Once again it dawns on me that you're no longer there. Well, I'm not one to hide from my problems. I'd rather hold them to my heart. But then again, I always had you for context. Keep them from tearing me apart. And you always said you'd stand nearby, closer than any friend. Since then I've stumbled on. Well, I've got my highs and my lows. Sometimes I travel farther than I thought I could. Well, it's never far enough, I know. Well, I never was one for ironic self-reflection. I never played the cynic's part. But then I never knew the strength of our connection. And now I know I'm not that smart. And there comes a time we all will sing? Would you fill your mind with care? When I reached out to touch you and madly grasped the air, and you always said you'd stand nearby, closer than any friend. And with you near, I felt faith to try. What I didn't know was you'd leave the path before the end. And there comes the time we all will face. Yeah, the past and future meet. In some good time I may come to see you, but until that happens, I'm left alone upon the street. Yeah, alone upon this street. Oh, well, hello, it's nice to see you, but I wouldn't want to be you. No, I'd rather be myself. Though I can tell you've got your reasons, and you're a good one for all seasons. You're just a picture of good health. Oh, but you see, I've got my own things, despite the problems that they all bring. At least I feel like mine to lose. I'd rather fight and lose my own wars and get to close my own doors. At least then I'm the one to choose. Well, this is on me, only on me, yeah, this is on me. Well, it's so very hard to be someone like me, yeah, someone like me, oh, someone like me. And in the time I built my own space, it comes to win my own race. In the time I found my home, you could have helped me in my travels. Instead you helped me to unravel. You know you played a kind of role. Oh, in the home I hold my heartbeat. In the place I try to repeat all the things that worked before. Well, if you break it down as I did, and if you take me at my own bid, if you knew me at my core. Oh, this is on me, only on me, yeah, this is on me. It's so very hard to be nice to see you, but I wouldn't want to be you. No, I'd rather be myself. Though I can tell you've got your reasons, and you're a good one for all seasons. You're just a picture of good health. Oh, but you see, I've got my own things, despite the problems that they all bring. At least they feel like mine to lose. I'd rather fight and lose my own wars than get to close my own doors. At least then I'm the one to choose. Oh, this is on me, only on me, yeah, this is on me. Well, it's so very hard to be someone like me, yeah, someone like me. Oh, this is on me, only on me, yeah, this is on me. Well, it's so very hard to be someone like me, yeah, someone like me. Drift out of my head, take my body instead. I'll need my senses now. I'll need a way to show you how. It's not that I just don't care, but I've just become aware. Is this your picture here? Why won't your image disappear? Have you grown angry yet? Well, you haven't gotten to that yet. Will you find my words in time? When you learn that you're not mine. Okay, hi everybody. Welcome back to the show. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was fun to do. Paul seemed like a very nice guy, and yeah, it was kind of neat, I have to say, to be interviewing someone that I had, the games for whom I had played in the past. I thought that was kind of neat. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and that you got answers to questions. And actually, we didn't get the huge flood of questions that we got from the Shadowrun people. So I think I did actually manage to get to just about all of them. So it worked out. And you heard that they said they're going to be back, which is cool. So we will have them back when more has been done later on. All right, let us move on now. Time has come to move on to a little Trails of Sky. That's right, Trails of Sky. It is 11 degrees out. Can I just say, what on earth, man? Like, this is... Can we get a little bit of warmth up in his house? Like, I understand that it's winter and you have to expect cold, but man, like 11, 10, 11. Walking around campus today, it was brutal. I mean, it was brutal. It was brutal. Oh, my pleasure, Zeb. Thanks. I'm glad you liked it. When am I getting a dev preview copy of the game? I saw that question, Money, and I was tempted. I'm like, maybe I should add. Then I'm like, no, I should not ask that question. Nothing good will come from my asking that question. It's a question that's going to sound really cool, and it's going to be. It's just not. It's not gonna work itself out. So, nope, not the right call. But anyway. All right, yeah, now that's right. I had to fire up my Steam account. Because at one point, Skype, man, I had to, I took off pretty much everything that could be in the internet. My internet was fine. I wasn't dropping frames or anything. It was just Skype being Skype for some reason. I don't know. Crazy talk. All right. Let's see. We are on... I think we're here, aren't we? Yeah. Okay. Oh, my pleasure, Call. Really, Hellness? Oh my god, man. Oh, great, River. Where do you live again, River Dusk? I should know this already, but where do you live again? Yeah, my pleasure, Call. Did you see Law's question about the question? Oh, yeah. I think, quite frankly, it's a little overcomplicated. I don't think we need to do something like that yet. Now, it's possible that it's the kind of thing that as we get to sort of high, as we do more of these interviews, if we start having 400, 500 people in chat or something like that, we had 200 for Shadowrun. If we get more people like that in these things, I guess something that would be useful, but it seems like a lot of extra work right now for I don't know how much return. So I'd say I don't think it's really necessary right now, but it's the kind of thing down the line we might be able to do. So 60. Oh, you're in Sacramento. Oh. That explains a lot. You Sacramento people. 60 degrees in Texas. Oh man, Zeb. So you're not in North Texas. You're not in the Dallas area, right, Zeb? You couldn't be. Okay, I already took care of this lamp. I think all I had left was, let's see what we have. We had medical necessities, soldier training. All right, let me find out exactly what order I'm supposed to do this in, because I think... If I'm not mistaken, there we go. So soldier training first, and then the other two. So let's do soldier training. Let's do the soldier training one next. So soldier training is... Soldier station at the Vert Bridge is set to undergo special training. We're looking for a few good men or women to play the parts of enemy soldiers. All right. Contact Chief Warrant Officer Ashton at the Vert checkpoint on the west end of the main road. All right. West end of the main road it is. Oh my goodness, Wes! Dude, we are the Romantics. I have not seen Wes on for ages, and Wes comes up and drops an 86-person host. Thank you, Wes. What is up, man? I think you guys already know how much I like Wes and We're the Romantics. My only frustration, and I know why it's happening, is that the poor guy is not able to do... This is the wrong place. Is the poor guy has got a new baby in the house, and I know all about what it's like when you've got a new kid. And how that sort of can cut into your streaming time. But it's too bad because I really like Wes as a streamer. So anyway, you guys should definitely give him a follow. Wes, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Oh, here comes the raid. Dark Phazon. Little Metroid action. Thank you so much. Oh, I appreciate it, Wes. Thanks, dude. It's good to see you, man. How's everything going with the kid? How is everything with your son? Is he okay? I can't wait for Star Citizen, Wes, not just because I'm looking forward to seeing it, because I want to see... I'm looking forward to what you do with it. Like, I feel like Star Citizen is going to be a big thing for you, so I'm pumped up to see it. Unofficial raid. That's cool. Thanks, Milks. Good to see you guys. Thank you guys so much. Love me some Western Romantics. Thanks, man. All right. This music just makes me so happy. Thank you for the follow, Dark Phazon. This music makes me so happy. Just like, just feel so calm and. What's up, Earth Machine? He's doing really well. He's too smart for his own good. But that's what it's all about, right? Good to see you, Earth. Yeah, that's what it's all about, man. Oh, that's great. Wait, how old is he now? Is he like 5 or 6 months now, Wes, or is he older than that? How old is your son now? My daughter just turned 7, which is staggering, frankly. I'm stuck standing here today, but travelers are incredibly sparse. Man, I'm so bored. With all this free time, I've started trying to find shapes in the clouds as they pass by. That's fascinating. Private Harold. 6 months. Nice, dude. Congratulations. 4 teeth. Oh, yeah. Yep. Ah, that teething. That teething, though. Get ready for the constant... Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. I know. I know it. I've been there. Get ready for the constant arguments with your pediatrician, all who are going to continually argue that you're not getting a fever. They're all going to say, no, the child doesn't have a fever. It's ridiculous. It's got nothing to do with teething. And you're going to be like, he does have a fever because of teething. Parents are always like, he has a fever because he's teething. And the pediatricians are like, nope, that's not true. This argument just always continues. All I can tell you is, as I said last night in another context, this too shall pass, as the Stoics said. So this time will happen, you know? Oh, man. It's going to be worth it, though, man. It's going to be worth it. Has he shown any, aptitudes that you like? Is he, like, super athletic and, like, leaping over things? Is he, like, super artistic? What aptitudes has he shown? I assume he's, like, is he crawling yet? He's obviously sitting up by himself. Is he crawling at all? And, like crawling a little? Yeah. Checkpoint here almost gets no travelers and it's quiet. All I can hear is the babbling of the river and the chirping song of the birds. This is way more relaxing than the farm where I worked before. Whoa. No, that's not right. Ah, not you, Harold. Looking for what's his face. Really? I assume that's over there. I'll check that in a minute. I love how the chain would keep them from crossing. That's logical, not. He crawls backwards. He could stand up holding onto something all day long. He might just skip most of the crawl and go straight to walk. My daughter, it's funny to think about it now as a 7-year-old that she's 7, but my daughter used to do the army crawl. She did like the one thing like this, like she's got the one arm thing. So she's very, so we used to joke as we were watching, we were just like, all right, I'm crawling through the foxhole. Watch me coming. Oh, you're doing the sign language thing? We did a little bit of that too, yeah. She never picked up too much of that, but we did a little bit of it. That's cool though, that's cool. Yeah, it's so cool to see them grow. Well, if it isn't Estelle, and Joshua too. Hello, Chief Foreign Officer Ashton. It's been a while since we last met. Yes, it has. So I've heard my boy Luke called you a lot of trouble, did he? I'm absolutely ashamed as a father. I'm sure it's perfectly normal for a boy his age to be naughty like that. I mean, even I ran around outside of town when I was young. Yeah, and you're supposed to be a girl. He has sound language for milk and eat. Nice. What's up, Empty? No, I did not finish X-Wing Alliance. I'm about halfway through X-Wing Alliance, but I didn't want to get burned out on it, and I really wanted to give this game a try. So I'm going to play this, probably Pose of Eternity after that. I will go back to X-Wing Alliance. I'll definitely finish it, just like I did for Ultima Underworld. I got back and finished it eventually. I just didn't want to do it all at once. So I played about halfway through. Moon crawling, nice. Haha, you're certainly full of energy as usual. I'd love to get you to share some of that vigor with my new recruits. I've been thinking recently about doing a simulated battle to whip my men into shape, so I put in a request at the guild for a few good men or women to play the part of enemy soldiers. Nice, welcome in, Jake. Awesome. We got to make sure that you get fed, so welcome in, Jake. Thanks, dude. thank you all to those of you in We Are the Romantics. Thank you all for the raid and the host. I appreciate you guys. I think the pair of you would be the perfect fit for the job, so how about it? You do this for me? Hell yeah. Sure, we'll do it. We'll gladly accept. Well, thanks. I really appreciate this. Go ahead and take a break until the preparations are ready. If I don't have you in tip-top condition, there's no point in doing the training. Then I'm ready for an afternoon nap. All right, then we'll get ourselves ready. Sure, please do what you need to. Fade to black, apparently. Maybe I should have saved first. All right, training begins now. Everyone advance 5 steps forward. Ready yourselves. I know I was bored before, but I know it's just training and all, but it still scares the living daylights out of me. This is a training exercise, so please refrain from speaking. You all need to take this seriously, as if this were a real battle. Estelle and Joshua, you don't need to hold back on my men. Well, that was my intention from the beginning. We'll do as you request. Yikes. Forward! Whoa, what? What the hell was that all about? Double miss. That's right, you missed with your paintball. Haha, there we go. Ow. Kabow. Nice. Down you go. Time to go Full Metal Jacket. I'll take them down. Good night, Helmus. Thanks for stopping by, man. What? Let's see how this airstrike works. That's right, you missed. I don't miss. There you go.
Good to go.
Well, the opening of Full Metal Jacket, the opening segment is so good that the rest of it, I think, almost suffers by comparison. I think the opening of Full Metal Jacket is, the first, like, half of the movie is unbelievable. I think the second half is, like, sort of traditional, kind of standard stuff. It's okay, but it's, like, not that big a deal. But, boy, that first part is amazing. There you go. Yep. All right. Cease fighting. This training is over. Can't think of a bad Kubrick film, yeah. Oh my goodness, it's finally over. Good job, everyone. Can I say pathetic? Are you guys really supposed to be soldiers? Hey, you be quiet. We're not all feral kids like you. How about you try and say that one more time? Knock it off, Scott. Training is over. You seriously need to cool down too, Estelle. I hate sore losers. Private Scott, Private Harold, I think what Estelle said just a moment ago is how the citizens of this region really feel. You're a pathetic failure. I think you should go back to your homes and let your families punch you in the face. No, I made that part up. Do you really have what it takes to protect them? It seems as though the both of you need to take another look in the mirror. Yes, sir. Very good. Do not forget what you learned today and strive to fulfill your duties. Estelle and Joshua, thanks for your hard work today. Thanks to you, I think my soldiers have gotten the wake-up call they needed. There's no need to thank us. It's us who should be thanking you. This was excellent training. I agree. This was a good learning experience. Haha, if you think so, then you're set for life as bracers. Though our positions may be different, we are both here to serve the public. Although I can't do much else, I'll pray for success for the both of you. Sure, and thanks again. Take care of yourself. I will, and I hope to be seeing you again sometime. Quest soldier training completed. Blah, blah, blah. Alright, cool. Alright. Job complete. Time to head back and get our reward. Oh, actually, time to save first. Yeah, I've actually never read Clockwork Orange, the book. The movie is not very pleasant. So did you guys like, was it Eyes Wide Shut? That was also a Kubrick film, wasn't it? Wasn't Eyes Wide Shut also Kubrick? I think. Thank you for the follow, Peter Dens. Save early, save often. That's right. That is right. Okay, reported results for soldier training. Let's see. I got 5 BP, so 22. Completed 7 jobs. I got 500 Mira. Oh, so they gave me a bonus because of how I handled that. Current rank is still junior bracer 8th grade. 8th class, 8th grade. Good work. It seems like you completed your objective without any trouble. If you finish any other jobs, please come back and report again. I will. That leaves me with medical necessities and mushroom hunt. Alright, before I do that, though... let's see. I don't think I have enough Sepith yet. I want to open another slot here. Man, still don't have enough. That is unfortunate. Alright. But I am going to go across and get some more weapons, etc. here. Eyes Wide Shut was his last? Well, yeah, I think it was his last.